We're in Srimad Bhagvatam 3.2.3. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadhati Shapadantikam Sakatam Sevaya Tasya Kalena Jadasam Gataha Prishto Vartam Pratibhruyad Bhartupada Vanusmaran. Uddhava thus served the Lord continually from childhood, and in his old age that attitude of service never slackened. As soon as he was asked about the message of the Lord, he at once remembered all about him. Purport: transcendental service to the Lord is not mundane. The service attitude of the devotee gradually increases and never becomes slackened. Generally, in old age, a person is allowed retirement from mundane service. But in the transcendental service of the Lord, there's no retirement at all. On the contrary, the service attitude increases more and more with the progress of age. In the transcendental service, there's no satiation, and therefore no retirement. Materially, when a man becomes tired by rendering service in his physical body, he is allowed retirement. But in the transcendental service, there's no feeling of fatigue, because it is spiritual service and is not on the bodily plane. Service on the bodily plane dwindles as the body grows older, but the spirit is never old, and therefore on the spiritual plane, the service is never tiresome. This is Srila Prabhupada is writing with authority. He himself had been a Krishna conscious child, and in his old age he started the Krishna consciousness movement and wrote this purport. The one consideration, one doesn't become tired of service, but that doesn't mean that one should be stuck up to some particular post or position in service. Not that if I'm Pujari, that I must be the Pujari till my last day. If I'm a temple president or a GBC man or a officer of a corporation for Krishna's service, then I have to stay in that post till the end. Because that's my service. My service is to serve. And I don't walk away from a service simply because of old age or inconvenience. But I don't stick into it. I don't stick to it, monopolizing it and defending it against all comers. Because of insecurity, what would I do if I weren't doing this? Who would take care of me? The mundane politicians never retire from their post unless they're forced out. But the devotee is willing to move on. I do this service, I do that service, I just want to serve. And if someone comes up from below to replace him, he's happy. He doesn't think, oh, now other people are learning to do what I know how to do. What will happen to me? Other people are becoming expert. That's called envy. We don't want others to become expert, because then they might replace us. They might, impinge on our territory. This is the mundane mentality. Prabhupada instructed, continue your prescribed duty and train others. So you train others, that means they'll do what you're doing. There's more work, there's more service. There's no shortage, there's no end to it. But if I'm materially in a attached position, I think that I have to hold on to this position and not let anyone else do it. And that's small-minded. It holds others back. It usually holds the organization itself back. The service that I think nobody can do but me, I'm actually retarding, holding back. Because there are people who could maybe do it better than me, who could bring fresh ideas or fresh energy, but no, this is my service. We want the sweet spots, the service that gives some prestige or some other kind of benefit, comfort, perhaps, facility. So that, it's subtle, it's not the same as being attached to money and women. And I'm still attached to Krishna's service, but it's still a crippled mentality. Still a crippled mentality. We should be happy to train others, and the wisdom in many missionary organizations and corporate contexts is that your mission is to replace yourself. From day one, your mission is to train your replacement, not to stick in there as indispensable. And we're just reading that in the section, not in this section, but elsewhere in Vidura's instructions to Dhritarashtra in the first canto. Dhritarashtra is indispensable. He's attached. He can't give up his illusion of being the royal uncle of Maharaj Yudhisthira, even after he's lost everything. And he's living, as Vidura says, on scraps thrown to him by Bhima, who's killed his favorite sons. So we don't want to be like Dhritarashtra, unable to let go. Dhrita means holding on. Dhritarashtra, holding on to the kingdom. Even after he's lost it, he's still under the illusion he can hold on to it. So Prabhupada said before there were, 5,000 years ago, there was one Dhritarashtra. He said now there's a Dhritarashtra in every house. So that kind of material attachment, or even service attachment, is not the best. Nor when it says that we shouldn't retire, does it mean that we shouldn't retire from family life. That because the spirit is fresh, I can stay in family life till I'm at the fag end of my days. That kind of retirement is wanted. And Prabhupada did that. Prabhupada certainly wouldn't speak against retirement from family life after having retired himself from family life. All right, so that's the first thing. Second thing is that in spiritual service, the enthusiasm grows. It doesn't wane. It's not a mundane occupation where it becomes tiresome and boring and routine. If it is becoming tiresome and boring and routine, it means that we're becoming, pedestrian in our service. That we're not moving ahead. That we're just... But Krishna consciousness is always active. There's always the desire to serve more, to expand. And we see that when Prabhupada moved on from family life, then he moved on from Vrindavan. When he could have sat in Los Angeles in the headquarters there, he moved on and traveled all over the world. So this spirit is there, and Prabhupada says never becomes slackened. It's dynamic. So here we find that Uddhava in his childhood was completely devoted to Krishna, and in his old age he was completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Uddhava undoubtedly became old, but that does not mean that his spirit became old. His service attitude matured on the transcendental plane, and therefore, as soon as he was questioned by Vidura about Lord Krishna, he at once remembered his Lord by reference to the context and forgot himself on the physical plane. That is the sign of pure devotional service to the Lord, as will be explained later on, Lakshanam Bhakti Yogasya, etc., in Lord Kapila's instructions to his mother, Devahuti. Any question? Okay. Or comments? Samahurtam abhut tushnim Krishnangri Shuddhaya Brisham Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Nimagna Sadhu Nirvritaha. For a moment, he remained dead silent, and his body did not move. He became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy, and he appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. Purport. On the inquiry by Vidura about Krishna, Uddhava appeared to be awakened from slumber. He appeared to regret that he had forgotten the lotus feet of the Lord. Thus he again remembered the lotus feet of the Lord and remembered all his transcendental loving service unto him. And by so doing he felt the same ecstasy that he used to feel in the presence of the Lord. Because the Lord is absolute, there is no difference between his remembrance and his personal presence. Thus, Uddhava remained completely silent for a moment. But then he appeared to be going deeper and deeper into ecstasy. Feelings of ecstasy are displayed by highly advanced devotees of the Lord. There are 8 kinds of transcendental changes in the body: tears, shivering of the body, perspiration, restlessness, throbbing, choking of the throat, etc. And all were manifested by Uddhava in the presence of Vidura. Tell of one incident in New York. Srila Prabhupada was visiting, and the New York Temple Room, this was in Brooklyn, was long, like this. Wider than this is, but long. Prabhupada's asana is here, Radha Govinda are there, and the door for coming in and out of the temple is over here, about this distance from Prabhupada's asana. So Prabhupada gave the class, and then as Prabhupada was getting up to leave, one of his disciples, Bharadwaj Das, began kirtan. He was a very good kirtan singer. Prabhupada appreciated his kirtan very much. Actually, as I recall, he was chanting a song, not again chanting. And Prabhupada had gotten down from his asana and had offered obeisances before leaving. And then he was getting up and this kirtan was going. And Prabhupada just froze. and he's looking toward the deities, and he just became stunned. And Maharaj is chanting, and Prabhupada is not moving. And the whole temple room just became filled with this astonishment and wonder, and this just went on, just playing and speaking, and Prabhupada's not moving. And then the pujari closed the curtains, and Prabhupada got up and left the temple room. So that sometimes happens. Generally, the pure devotee doesn't show these symptoms. He even tries to suppress them. The sahajas, they try like anything to manifest them, but the genuine devotees try to suppress these symptoms, but sometimes those symptoms overflow. On some other occasions, Prabhupada was speaking in Mayapur, and again he just became stunned. He was talking about how devotees had come from all over the world, from so many different countries, spending so much money, and he just couldn't go on speaking. And then another devotee, maybe Hansadutta or someone, began kirtan, and then Prabhupada. Depends which time it was, because it happened. There was some time in Mayapur where that happened 1 year, 2 or 3 times. At the lectures, Prabhupada just became overwhelmed. It could have been Brahmananda Maharaj on one occasion at least. So this happens, that the devotee becomes, and it's described by Rupa Goswami, how these symptoms manifest. When the life air is in touch with, comes in touch with Vayu, I think, then this symptom of being stunned takes place. When it's in touch with something else, another symptom. It's in touch with something else, another symptom. But this being stunned is, yes, so that's a symptom of the internal feelings of the advanced devotee. So Uddhava was being asked about Krishna and Krishna's associates and how they're faring and so on. And meanwhile, Krishna has departed the planet. So in feelings of extreme separation, he's simply becoming absorbed in thinking of Krishna. Muhurta. Muhurta means after a moment, or Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments after 48 minutes, because that's another meaning of Muhurta. Muhurta can mean just a moment, or when you're calculating in a certain way, then just like Brahma Muhurta, 48 minutes in the morning. So it could be that also. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments. Any comments or questions so far? Okay. Krishna, Krishna. Pulakod binna sarvango munshan mila drisha shuchaha purnarto lakshitas tena sneha prasara samplutaha. devotee in pure ecstasy his throat becomes choked up and tears fall from his eyes. For me, it's just when I have a severe cold. It was so observed by Vidura that Uddhava had all the transcendental bodily changes due to total ecstasy. And he was trying to wipe away tears of separation from his eyes. Thus Vidura could understand that Uddhava had completely assimilated extensive love for the Lord. Purport: the symptoms of the highest order of devotional life were observed by Vidura, an experienced devotee of the Lord, and he confirmed Uddhava's perfectional stage of love of Godhead. Ecstatic bodily changes are manifested from the spiritual plane and are not artificial expressions developed by practice, which is what the Sahajas do. They somehow or other try to push those symptoms, because advancement in devotional service is characterized by these symptoms, so they want to see those symptoms, either to show the public or to show themselves that they're advanced devotees. So the tears should flow, the desire is to experience all of these things. Narottam Das Thakur also says, Gauranga Balite Have Pulaka Sharir. What is that? So when will that stage come? When just by hearing Gauranga Nam, there'll be shivering in the body, there'll be tears in the eyes. But he says, we quoted the other day, Vishayat Shariya Kabe Shuddha Haviman. These things come in pure devotional service. Otherwise, they're useless. Or maybe they give a little hint. In the association of pure devotees, sometimes even neophytes can experience some transcendental ecstatic symptoms. But it's not to be done by artificial means or as a means to impress onlookers, especially feminine onlookers. That's the Sahaja pure devotional service. You show these ecstatic, transcendental symptoms of ecstasy so that you can impress some women and get their association. That's called degradation. But the pure symptoms are shown on the Shuddha Sattva platform, the platform of pure devotional service. There are 3 different stages of development in devotional service. The first stage is that of following the regulative principles prescribed in the codes of devotional service. The second stage is that of assimilation and realization of the steady condition of devotional service. And the last stage is that of ecstasy symptomized by transcendental bodily expression. The 9 different modes of devotional service, such as hearing, chanting, and remembering, are the beginning of the process. By regular hearing of the glories and pastimes of the Lord, the impurities in the student's heart begin to be washed off. The more one is cleansed of impurities, the more one becomes fixed in devotional service. Gradually, the activities take the form of steadiness, firm faith, taste, realization, and assimilation, one after another. These different stages of gradual development increase love of God to the highest stage, and in the highest stage there are still more symptoms, such as affection, anger, and attachment, gradually rising in exceptional cases to the Mahabhav stage, which is generally not possible for for the living entities. All these were manifested by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the personification of love of God. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami, the chief disciple of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, these transcendental symptoms displayed by pure devotees like Uddhava are systematically described. We have written a summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu entitled The Nectar of Devotion, and one may consult this book for more detailed information on the science of devotional service. The ordinary men, including ordinary mundane scholars or sentimental devotees, think of bhakti as just love. The yoga of love. But Srila Prabhupada presented bhakti as the science of devotional service, not just love. Srila Rupa Goswami begins, Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadyanavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktiruttama. When there's no trace of gyan, no trace of fruitive activities, no trace of anything foreign, anyabhilashita shunyam, then, and one is engaged in everything favorable for the service of the Lord. This is devotional service. Sarvopadi vinir muktam tat pratena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchate. When we systematically engage our senses in the service of Krishna's senses, under the guidance of the bona fide acharya, then we're performing devotional service. And Prabhupada explains 3 stages. First, following the regular codes of devotional service, then developing steadiness in the further advanced platform, and maturing up to the point of ecstasy, attachment, and so on. Any questions or comments?
My name is
Murlidhar.
They say that the symbiotic relationship between knowledge and devotion. It is said that there is a symbiotic relationship between knowledge and devotion. So the definition of, in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where it says there should be no jnana, no karma. How do we reconcile these two?
Jnana karmadyanavritam. But it doesn't mean the devotee performs no activity and has no knowledge. Jnana means knowledge. Karma means activity. So when it says jnana karmadyanavritam, it doesn't mean that the devotee's a fool and he doesn't do anything. But it means no fruitive activities and no speculative knowledge, or none of the speculative process of gaining knowledge, especially knowledge directed toward impersonalism. Tachstradadana muneyo jnana vairagya yuktaya pashyantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya shruta grihitaya. In the first canto it said that the self-realized sage understands follows the process of pure devotional service, enriched with knowledge. Tachstradadana jnana vairagya yuktaya, enriched by knowledge and renunciation, in terms of what he's heard from the Shastras. So it's not that devotional service means, again, for the sadhus, no activity. Something like distributing books, now that would just be karma yoga, at best. Where's the, what is that? That's just some sort of a way to keep materially inclined disciples profitably engaged. But it's not real devotional service. It's practically karma. But we saw that Srila Prabhupada was going to the bookshops trying to distribute books. He was approaching important men and trying to convince them to take copies of Srimad Bhagvatam. So, and Prabhupada comments in his original preface to one of the Bhagavatam volumes, he says they see that we're moving in the paper markets, that we're moving at the printing presses, and they think that we've taken up business, or that we're sticking to business affairs in the dress of the renounced order. But they don't understand that this is devotional service for the deliverance of the conditioned souls. So it's not ordinary karma. Similarly, devotee is not lacking in knowledge. What is that? Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Priyojita Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Ganam Chayodohetika. The automatically renunciation and knowledge follow when one is engaged in devotional service, but not the impersonal speculative knowledge. Is that okay?
On the one hand, Prabhupada's written about philosophy of Krishna consciousness, how we should practice, what we should avoid. Also, he's written, the Bhagvatam, which is pastimes of Krishna book, nectar of devotion. So, for devotees who are just on the stage of just trying to practice Krishna consciousness, what balance should we have in terms of what we should hear? In terms of there's one thing is hearing pastimes of Krishna, and another thing is hearing the philosophy of Krishna consciousness.
Even the pastimes of Krishna, what should we hear? What should be the balance between hearing philosophy, hearing pastimes? When we hear pastimes from the right source, then it's also philosophy. When we're reading Krishna book, how much philosophy, Prabhupada? Of course, even there, without Prabhupada adding anything, so much philosophy is there. Brahma's offering his prayers, Indra's offering his prayers. The demigods are offering prayers to the Lord in the womb. Throughout, there's so much philosophy. Even taking 10th canto as the place where the pastimes are most concentrated, so much philosophy is there. And then when we're hearing these pastimes from Prabhupada, then still more care to see that we get the philosophical understanding. So that by reading Krishna book, one doesn't just read enjoyable pastimes, which they certainly are, but one gets transcendental knowledge at the same time. The sahajas, or the professional reciters, they just want to give you a storyline mixed with some sort of useless message of their own, either a speculative philosophical message, or some message about morality, or some message about even national pride, or something like that. There was in the B.R. Chopra Mahabharata, there's a section where Krishna's Rukmini is writing to Krishna, please come kidnap me. And the commentator, Samai time is the narrator, and he's saying, right? Yeah, me kalhu. Me samayhu. So he's giving the commentary that we honor Rukmini because she's the real example of Indian womanhood. She didn't just follow what her father and brother had arranged for her, but she took the initiative and chalked out her own future. Yay, Rukmini. You know, it's totally mundane. You're trying to pull out a, Adunik Hindustani Nari narrative from Krishna's pastimes. So this is useless. This is useless. It's not that every girl in Krishna's time was making up her own mind about who to marry. The highly qualified Kshatriya girls would choose their husband and Swayamvara, just like Draupadi and so on. And the Kshatriyas would be invited from all over the world. But it wasn't that everybody was just liberated and freewheeling and writing letters to their boyfriends and saying, please come kidnap me, and all of that. But people write these, draw these ideas out, and then we get a mixture of Krishna Katha and their own mental speculations, or their own agendas of whatever kind. And therefore, we're recommended not to hear Krishna Katha from the non-devotees, because then we walk away with even they'll so many morals of how you should stay materially attached one way or another. They'll pull out of these things. But when we hear from the pure devotee, then the pure devotee gives us philosophical understanding also. That we're not this body, that this human life is not meant for sense gratification, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that we're meant to serve Him. So many practical instructions are there. And the pure devotees don't just say, let's go right to the Rasa Panchodhyaya. They're for talking about Vamandev, they're for talking about Prahlad, they're for talking about all of Krishna's pastimes, or everything connected with Krishna. Not only the rasa dance, because that's the part that brings the most customers. So Prabhupada said, you read any of, he said, read any of my books. Wherever you taste, it will be sweet. But don't just pick up and say, okay, we only read about Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, we only read about Krishna and the gopis. That will not help us. Is that okay?
Maharaj, so it requires constant self-analysis.
Excuse me?
It requires constant self-analysis while pursuing devotional service, because it seems like there's a very thin line between what is spiritual and material.
Yeah, it seems like there's a thin line between spiritual and material, and therefore it requires constant self-analysis. Yeah, we're meant to, these instructions are meant for the introspective soul. Someplace it's said, this is Chanakya Shloka, I think, but what is the use of instructions, spiritual instructions for a person who's not introspective? It's like a mirror for a blind man. So when these instructions are being given, it's not that Bhagvatam is talking all about everybody else. When it's talking about material attachment, when it's talking about foolishness, when it's talking about illusion, when it's talking about dirt in the heart, when it's talking about the need to become freed from jnana and karma, it's not that it's meant for everybody else. And we read it with that in mind, that I have to read this so that I'll have something to tell people and instruct them. It's for us. So, yes, we're supposed to be introspective. You know, is this talking about me? Do I have these things? Where do I stand? And not overinflating the matter. To think that, well, yes, this might have applied to me in my earlier days of Krishna consciousness, but now we shouldn't be full of ourselves, as they say, overestimating our advancement. Therefore, Sanatana Goswami is teaching abject humility. And here we read, Uddhava's thinking, I forgot about Krishna. I forgot about Krishna, and now I'm being reminded. It's not, I never forget about Krishna. I forgot about Krishna. He's thinking that way. Is that okay? We only have a muhurta left. Shanakara Bhagavan Lokan Rilokam Punaragata Pramidja Netre Viduram Prityao Dhavam Utsmayan. Well, this is quite the astonishing verse. The great devotee Uddhava soon came back from the abode of the Lord to the human plane, and wiping his eyes, he awakened his reminiscence of the past and spoke to Vidura in a pleasing mood. We'll read the purport tomorrow because our time is disappearing. Shanakai gradually, Bhagavan Lokat, Rilokam Puna Agata. He came back from the abode of the Lord to the planet of the human beings. His mind was there with Krishna in the spiritual world. Now it's returning. Pramidja netre viduram. So wiping his eyes, viduram pritya. He spoke to Vidura pritya, with affection. With affection. Do we have any time? No, is there anything else? We have 3 minutes. I don't think I can go very far in 3 minutes. We'll start, we'll read a little bit. When Uddhava was fully absorbed in the transcendental ecstasy of love of God, he actually forgot all about the external world. That's mentioned Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri. Kaviraj Goswami says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was performing his various activities like bathing and his usual duties, but automatically. Automatically, that is to say, his mind was elsewhere. You could take the example that a businessman is going into the file cabinet and he's looking at some papers and he's seeing something, looking up a price or looking up a contract, and he's closing it and so on. But his mind is not focused on, now I'm opening the file cabinet, now I'm closing the file cabinet. That's just automatic. His mind is really absorbed in the profit and the details of the transaction and all of that. And opening the file cabinet, closing the file cabinet, that's going on automatically. So Kaviraj Goswami says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities of bathing, eating, whatever, they were just going on automatically because his mind was absorbed in thinking of Krishna. Someplace maybe he says, where Prabhupada said it, they didn't know whether his body was on or off. Like a madman, madman doesn't know whether he's got clothes on or not. Because he's out of touch. He doesn't. An ordinary person is thinking, all right, buttons are buttoned, and everything. He looks in the mirror, is everything all right? Yeah, okay, I'm ready to go. But a madman, he could be anywhere and doesn't know what's going on, because his mind is elsewhere. So the pure devotee, like Uddhava, his mind is in a different elsewhere. It's in the spiritual world. The madman's mind is in the mode of ignorance and lost in illusion. But the pure devotee's mind is absorbed in Krishna, and so he forgets about the external world. It's just Goswamis. Prabhupada said they reduced their eating and sleeping to practically nil. And he explained it's not that we're thinking, okay, today, so far it's like 3/4 of the day is over and I haven't eaten anything. So no, they forgot. They forgot. They were so absorbed in thinking of Krishna, Krishna's pastimes, gopis, all of these things. They forgot. But busy writing books, busy serving. They just forgot to eat. How many of us forget, we may forget everything else, but we don't forget to eat. They just forgot. So we can continue the purport tomorrow. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.